The Copa America is coming to the United States in 2024. So with that, I must ask the following question. How would you rank the top 10 nations in all of the Americas? CONCACAF and CONMEBOL, a power ranking. Hi, can you hear me? I'm Filippo, and welcome to Tactical Manager TV, and welcome to episode 2 of our 2-episode mini-series with CONCACAF and CONMEBOL. So as I said, this is episode 2 of the 2-episode mini-series that we had. We already released part 1. Part 1 was heavily focused on clubs. So we had MLS, Libertadores, Brasileirão. I guess MLS would be considered franchises, but you get the point. So today we have part 2 that will be heavily focused on national teams, and we're going to be ranking the top 10 national teams in all of the Americas. And for that, I will count with the help of Kevincho. As I said before, a massive Argentina fan, big-time Messi lover, and MLS fan. All his links are on the description and handles as well. And you can hit the like button in the meantime. But after you hit the like button, you can tell me in the comment section, what is your top 10 power ranking of all national teams in the Americas? All right, let's play the intro and let's bring Kevincho. All right, everyone, part 2. And this is actually my favorite one because we're about to rank, and Kevincho's going to have his ranking. I'm going to have mine. It might not match. Maybe we'll debate, maybe not. The top 10 national teams in all of the Americas. CONMEBOL, CONCACAF, United States, Brazil, Argentina, Colombia, Mexico, everything, Canada, if they make the top 10, the rude Canadians. But now I'm going to switch this up. Now I'm going to switch this up to United States because we're both Americans, so we might as well. All right, we might as well.
Let's go.
And we're going to go through this. We're going to start with number 10, and we'll move our way up to number 1. And some picks are kind of like self-explanatory. Some of them we can try to explain
Breakdown.
why. And the reason we are both doing this right now is not because there's no reason. It's just that in 2024, we have the actual Copa America that will have teams from CONCACAF and CONMEBOL. And we're seeing a lot of partnerships rise between CONCACAF and CONMEBOL. So we thought it'd be interesting to see how these teams rank. We're both here in the US, but Brazilian American, Argentine American, so you get a different perspective from each one. So Kevin,
yes sir,
why don't you start with who's your
number 10?
10th best nation in all of the Americas? And just like the
Yes.
Backstreet Boys would say, tell me why.
Okay, all right, listen here. So I'm kind of just like you said it, we talked about this behind the scenes, but in my head I'm like, okay, do I put this team in just because I see the potential and not they haven't shown me too much? So this is kind of my ringer, and I'm just, no offense. In number 10, sneaking in, I'm getting our boys from Jamaica. Okay. The reason why, and it was really tough fixing them in there because yeah, realistically, if you just think about it, Copa America, I'm not thinking Jamaica, who really is other than, Jamaican fans, but what they've shown me and within the World Cup qualifiers, World Cup area, their development, the players that they're kind of bringing in, uh, it's like a dark horse team for me, at least. Now, obviously, next summer, hopefully they don't just fall apart. But I think with them, like I had a really hard time. I had like Chile in here. Like, Chile is like one of those random South American teams that maybe will do okay. Somehow they win.
Peaked beating Argentina a few years back. That's it.
Right. That was it. And then they like fell off pretty hard. But in the moment right now, that's why I have our Jamaican friends in number 10.
Okay, so I had my ranking, and I'm changing a few things here and there
Okay.
in my head because I'm trying to remember the names. My number 10 is not Jamaica. I'm actually gonna put Paraguay. I'm actually gonna put Paraguay.
Oh,
I think they're on the rise. They have some good players. Gustavo Gomez from Palmeiras is the best center back in South America right now, in for the club level, right? Domestically, the Miguel Miron, and Ciso, right, from also Brighton is coming up. Paraguay is on the rise, and I think we're already going to see that immediately. So I'm not really looking at potential. I think we're going to see that impact immediately from Paraguay. I'm putting Paraguay number 10. And then obviously I was in my head, I was debating Costa Rica. I think their decline has been sharp. It's been dropping. And then Keylor Navas slowly ending his career. That's a massive loss for them. Brian Ruiz is done. Joe Campbell's probably not the same player he once was. It's the end of that golden generation that made that quarterfinals run. It's over. So I don't put Costa Rica. I have Paraguay there at my number 10. And you mentioned Chile, Venezuela, Bolivia. Those are not great teams. Uh, they've had better days. That's the best. Well, actually, Bolivia and Venezuela, that's roughly their level, uh, to be honest. But that's my number 10.
For
It's
real.
Paraguay. Want me to give you my number 9 now? We'll take
Yeah.
turns. I'll go
Okay,
9.
let's go.
My number 9, my number 9 is actually your number 10. It's Jamaica. I think what I saw from Jamaica in the Gold Cup was a bit underwhelming. I thought they could have done better. They should have done better. But one thing that I saw that I liked was they looked a bit more stable. There was more stability. It wasn't chaotic like Jamaica self implodes. They didn't self implode. They did okay. But when you look at the names they have, the talented players they have, Ethan Pinnock, Premier League center back, Mikel Antonio, Leon Bailey, Revel Morrison's a great player too, Bobby Di Cardova Reed. They have good players, and then good players that play in MLS. Andre Blake, one of the best goalkeepers in MLS, even though against Messi, he was just letting everything go in. Uh, so I have Jamaica in ninth. I think with their new
Yeah,
coach, they have
that's a
some
good comp.
stability there. There's the players, and I think they could pull something like special if this guy's given enough time to work. They got rid of Tapa Whitmore, the previous coach too. They got rid of him actually during the World Cup qualifying cycle. So I have Jamaica at number 9. I could be
Love it.
being generous. I could be being generous, but
Huh.
that's where I have them.
Love it. That's pretty. Look, I my next one here, your Jamaica makes sense. My next one might be a little bit crazy and I might get some heat. But just
Mm,
looking at the playing field, I had to put them in somewhere and they just kept dropping for me when I was making this list. I was like, "Nah, dude, like they just keep disappointing me." And they
Mexico,
barely
Mexico,
the
Mexico.
okay, they did too, but it's actually Canada.
Okay.
And the reason why I put Canada in 9 is because obviously we saw the World Cup. We saw how it went down. And really even building up to it, I was like, okay, they seem like a solid squad. And they really kind of embarrassed, I guess I'll just say it, just like North America. It just looked like they were clueless. They had no idea what they were doing. I don't know if that comes from not just quality, but management from the top. But Canada is just barely making this list, and they just keep dropping as I went. I used to have Canada at like 5 or 6 when I first started this list. Yeah, they keep going down. I just when I'm thinking Copa America and this upcoming, tournament, I don't feel as that like they're a dark horse, but they do still have those quality guys. You have those like random Davises, those guys that seem like they could play well and play against another North American side and do all right. But you put them against Brazil or something, like it's going to be a massacre in my head.
Yeah, the thing with Canada is there's no they're built like an MLS roster. I made this joke, but it's 100% accurate. Of course, they're better than an MLS roster when you look at some of the names. But what do I mean by that? They have like three DPs, which is
Yep.
Davies, David, and Eustachio. Then they have some players in the max Gam Tam, whatever, like Tajon Buchanan, Laren. They're like max Gam Tam. And then they have like a few good homegrowns here and there, like maybe Ugbo or Ismail Kone that just left. He was playing for Montreal and he
Yep.
went to the EFL Championship. They have some homegrowns. And then the rest are just players in that salary cap that are scrubs for the most part. That they're literally built like an MLS roster.
Right.
So yeah, there's quality. And if they get it going in a tournament, when you have a player like Eustachio, Davies, and David, they can make a run. But I tend to I agree with you in regards to Canada. I think they overhyped. They had a good run in World Cup qualifying, and then
Sure.
reality came in the World Cup, and then you saw also Nations League. The U.S. toyed around with them in the final.
Man.
It was an
Yeah,
easy game.
it wasn't, and that's where actually that was another reason why I kept dropping because what I saw was Canada look like such a mess in front of the United States, and the United States is much higher on this list, so like they really don't compare in my head. But that's a good point with the what you said earlier. Some clubs are super good in a tournament aspect, like they're ready to high intensity every days or whatever, 3 4 days, and it just looks like Canada is not that unless they change it within now that we're speaking till next June or July. I don't see them
Yeah,
going too
I just
far.
think they had a good run in World Cup
Yeah,
qualifying, which can happen. You can have a good run, bad run. They were in a good moment, and the
like
U.S. was
Brazil.
struggling. Yeah, like Brazil
Brazil
too.
dominated. I mean, Brazil
Yeah,
qualified for the last World Cup months
the
earlier than
last
everyone.
two. Yeah, the last two
Last two,
actually.
yeah, yeah,
But
true.
the thing with Brazil, at least it's a little bit more consistent. Canada was like a
True.
one-time thing. And Brazil was good leading into the World Cup too. And to
Yeah,
be fair, if they don't concede that goal against Croatia in the very end, they're playing Argentina in the
Argentina.
semifinals, and
Yeah,
anything could have happened in that game.
yeah.
So and then we wouldn't even be talking about it like this. We've been
Right,
talking about
sure,
maybe, but anyhow, the thing with Canada, yeah, and with that said, I'll let you go with your number
sure.
8 because you gave your 9. Who's your 8?
Yes, so my 8 is another one that has been falling and teetering a little bit, but my number 8 is Colombia.
Hmm.
The reason why I have Colombia at 8 is another one where,
You don't think they'll bounce back though? They definitely fell, but they still have great players. I would
like,
argue they have better players than a lot of the teams we're about to mention ahead of them.
sure. No, yeah, I agree. Like, if we go this player versus that player, I think Colombia does have the stronger 1v1, I guess, for each position. But the problem, I don't know if it is like Colombia under Peckerman. All those seasons, like all those years, Colombia was disgusting. I would be scared to play Colombia. We all seen that obviously that infamous 2014 run. Even in 2018, that World Cup, they were all right. It's just they fell off pretty hard. And in my head, it's like, okay, they have some key guys, but they also have some guys that are on like the older age. And I'm watching some of their players in Europe that are just like not really doing too well in the international side. I'm watching like some of the Colombian players in the Premier League and Serie A and the mix. It just feels like as a collective group, I get 2018 Argentina vibes only because like they should be good, but it's like almost not managed well, or they're just not meshing well
Mhm.
in a tournament. And I'm really trying to just think Copa America, obviously not 2026 yet. That one I just don't see them. Yeah, they get out of the groups, they maybe round of 16, but I don't know. They could be a dark horse or they could just be horrible.
Yeah,
Like that's my
from
vibe.
I'm no expert on Colombia, that's for sure, but I've
Sure.
watched a lot of their games, and even in the Copa America that Brazil was it the one that Brazil won?
Yeah, I think because you beat
Yeah, we
Peru
played
in the
Colombia
final.
and they were tough. Luis Diaz balled out. That was
Yeah.
before he went to Liverpool. I say it this way: out of the teams we're gonna mention ahead of us, of
Yeah.
Colombia, like you're gonna mention, like Mexico, US. I'm assuming they're ahead of Colombia, Ecuador.
Hmm.
Colombia has better forwards than those teams, in my opinion. They also have a defense that's probably about the same level. My issue with Colombia now, at least on paper, what I see is like that midfield. The midfield might be the main issue. But again, if you're Colombian, you know better than me. Let me know in the comment section down
Yeah.
below. I think their midfield is mainly their weakness. When it comes to forwards, they're very good.
Oh,
Luis
yeah,
Diaz
stacked.
is there. Muriel and Zapata still work, right? That still
Yeah.
works. Luis Diaz is a world class winger. Sinistera from Leeds. I know there's been a lot of criticism, but he's a good player too, and he's a backup for them. So there's quality with Colombia. I don't have Colombia at number 8. My number 8 is Canada. I
There
have
you go.
Canada at number 8,
Okay.
right? So I had what was it? I had my number 10 Paraguay, my number 9 Jamaica, my number 8 is the Canadian team. And I guess we kind of already talked about it. I talked about the roster construction. I thought they were a bit overhyped with the World Cup qualifying. They're definitely in a better position than they were many, many years ago. Like they're actually a competitive team. And they could get out of their group in the Copa America, depending on where they're placed. But I have Canada as the 8th nation in the Americas. And maybe I'm even being generous. Who knows? Wait, now it's 7. So I have to go. I have to go.
Yep,
Usually
you
when
got
it's
it.
odd, it's me. My 7 is Mexico. It's Mexico.
Yo, okay.
I have Mexico in number 7. I mean, talk about a nation that their national team, their soccer program is on a decline. Mexico in the past was giving trouble to Argentina, to Brazil. I don't see this generation giving any trouble. This generation is the one that is supposed to give trouble to the US, not to Brazil and Argentina. They're supposed to get ran over by Brazil and Argentina. But you look back in the past, in the 2000s, when Brazil used to play Mexico, it's not that we respected them. We always expected, well, we respected, but we always expected
Sure.
to beat them. But
Yeah.
we're like, oh, crap, we have to play Mexico. That's going to be a tough one. It's
It's tough.
always,
Always tough. Always.
always,
Yeah.
well, now
Well,
we're not seeing that way. We're kind of
maybe
like,
not this year. Yeah, true.
yeah, we're like, we should probably roll over Mexico at this point. But in the past, it was always like, oh crap, we have to play Mexico. They're always a pain to beat. They're not easy. They can beat us too. They've beaten us. So, but Mexico's decline has been sharp. I made a whole video about how Mexican soccer is broken. I went through the parts of the corruption within the system because, again, you can't go through everything. That would be like a 4-hour documentary, and I was doing like a 20-minute long video. I did it's like Mexican football is broken, and
Yeah.
no one can fix it. That's what I was saying, because like the way when you look at it, you're like, how do you fix this? It's like so much corruption, so much.
There's a lot of problems. Yes, and people were saying the same thing. Like people were getting nervous with Brazil like two seasons ago up until this season. Wasn't it this year that it came out like Brazil had a problem with like players with betting? I can't remember the
Yeah,
scandal.
it
It was
was a
something
few players
stupid.
there. The thing with Brazil is that some of the clubs, the club, it's a bit trickier in Mexico. I think it's too much to talk about in this video.
Yeah.
Mexico, like Televisa, there's some groups that have way too much power within the league and the
Yes.
team, and they even ended promotion relegation. Right, they made a closed system. Brazil, it's a bit more broken down. It's more divided within the club, so there's fights. Like there's the Palmeiras group, the Flamengo group, and it's like it's not. They're too big to like unless they partner up, which they don't. So
No.
it's a
Yeah.
bit trickier in that sense. But Mexico, I think any Mexico fan at this point can agree that this is
Oh
not
yeah.
their best. Like we've seen better Mexico sides. We literally just saw Mexico lose to the US 3-0 in the Nations League.
And
I've
you know
never
what?
seen that in my
Yeah.
life.
It was the thing that I always see with Mexico, and I have a lot of friends that are diehard Mexican national team fans, and they sometimes we get in conversations like they've had Tata, right? And they were like, "Look, it's Tata. We had a bad coach. He set us up for failure, or whatever." They get another guy. I don't know why they chose another Argentinian, but then okay, he sucked. It's his fault. Stop hiring Argentinians. Now they have this new guy, whatever his name is, and now we're just going to see how they're going to roll with them. Let's see their World Cup qualifiers. If he does not play well,
They're
you
not in World Cup
cannot.
qualifying. They're not. They're already qualified. They're a host.
Oh shit, you're right.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's just friendlies for forever, right? So fuck, dude. I mean, that's the thing. It really is a loss for Mexico because they need to play competitive games and like fight because they're not going to be they're not going to be chilling up until 2026 and then hope for a good run. They don't want to be embarrassed in the Copa America. Obviously, no one wants to be. They have if it's playing here, there's millions of Mexico fans. Mexico want to play well here, but do we have enough time from now till then playing a bunch of some friendlies? I don't know. It's they're gonna
Yeah,
play.
it's always for them. It's been always the coach. But is Tata Martino actually that bad? Is it not the
Dude,
players? Maybe I don't
I
know,
personally
man.
do not like him because was a nightmare in Barcelona and a nightmare in Argentina. But I cannot say like even because I hate him, I want to be like, yeah, Mexico, you should have known. But honestly, the players, like the guys they're calling, the not even the guys are calling, the guys that are on the field look lost at all times. Before him, even right before him, leading through the World Cup qualifiers and the World Cup.
I mean,
It,
just look at the players Mexico used to have, right? Chicharito
yeah,
in the top leagues, their top teams. Rafa Marquez, Hector Herrera too was a great player when he was in his prime
ballers.
and playing. Guardado, they don't have that anymore. They don't have
Yeah.
that. It's done. So Mexico to me is my number 7.
Okay.
Who's yours?
So when you said them, I was like, ooh, I almost switched these two as well. But my 7 isn't Mexico. It was a close one, but I actually put Paraguay up there. And
Hmm.
so okay, you mentioned it already. You kind of went through the whole points of why they're looking so good, but not only on the offensive side, but Paraguay is that team where okay, you play them and maybe it's a close match, 0-0, 1-1, whatever. They could take you the full length of the game. They have young quality players. And if they take you, let's say we go to penalties, they can move on. Or they could be another dark horse. They are even that for me, these last top 7 for my list here is the team that people would be like, holy God, how did Paraguay get this far in the tournament? But really, if you look, like you said earlier, the players they have in Europe, the players that have been playing together, which is huge, which is I think has been a fall for Brazil. It's just Paraguay have some of these players that played with each other for a while. It is showing. I hope in my I don't know, just to see a good tournament. I hope a Paraguay does far. It's not like
I
we mentioned earlier. They
no,
seem like they have something.
I like that at least we shared it because no one's talking about Paraguay right now, and at least we
Yeah,
share that same vision. It's like, you know what? I think Paraguay might be a bit of a surprise in South America. They might actually show up and have a good team.
yeah,
I think most people that follow South American soccer are seeing that Paraguay is getting
yes,
competitive again, which they were in the past, and then they started to suck, and they got back.
sure.
Remember the Roque Santa Cruz era?
Oh yeah, oh
But
yeah.
but now going on, so we did 7. Now
Sure.
let's go to 6. Who's
All
your
right, so
6?
my 6 is Mexico. So my
And
6
my
and
6 is
7.
Colombia. So it
Okay,
was,
okay, got it. We got the flip there. So
and I think we talked
Mexico,
about them enough already.
yeah,
Yeah.
that I was gonna say Mexico. We said what we needed to say. It's just for them, just to finish our points. They have not shown any increase of improvement on any development side, in my opinion. Just following all my Mexican friends who they follow their team, their players in Europe, like me and you do. It's not a lot. One and two, they're not. Maybe they're not like they're not making the first lineups. They're not the starting 11. They're off the bench. They're coming in. They're making funny moves in Belgium or in the Netherlands, and they're not
Greece.
in Greece. Stuff like that. So that's where I have Mexico at 6. But as we all know, Mexico, especially in a Copa America in the United States, there's going to be an atmosphere. They fight. They're passionate, just like any South American team is, and a lot of Central American teams have that. But Mexico is that intensity as well. That you can't shut them out always. So I had to throw them in for my number 6.
No, I think it's fair that they'll be, and also it's not like their team is a bunch of scrub. It's still a
No,
competitive team,
right.
but it's just not the Mexico we were used to seeing. So far I have Paraguay in 10, Jamaica
Yes.
in 9, Canada 8, Mexico 7, Colombia 6. Okay. Let's go to number 5, and I'll go first with my number 5.
Hmm.
And I feel like some of my viewers might get angry at this because they probably wanted them higher. I have the United States at 5. And
Yo.
yeah, and I think this is pretty big for the US because the countries that we have ahead of the US, 3 of them are clearly better. 3
Mhm.
are clearly better. One is debatable, which is my next national team that I'm going to talk about in a second. But 3, it's like crystal clear. I think the United States, we have the talent. There's a lot for us to prove still. And even when I look into some of the players, the way they played, and the team I'm going to mention at number 4, I believe they hired a coach that I think is very good, and I'll address that in a second. So I'm going to have the US in 5, but I'm going to say one thing. 5 and 4 is
They could be
like,
flip flop.
it'll flip. Like I can
Okay.
literally flip flop
Same.
next month, or the Copa America will change. So 5 and 4 are almost tied. Can I just give my 4? I'm
Do
just
it.
gonna give my
Do
4.
it.
So my 5 is the US, my 4 is Ecuador. But it's just kind of like this. I just saw a more competitive Ecuador in the World Cup. And I'm also seeing Pervis Estupinan and Brighton, maybe one of the best left backs in the Premier League. Moises Caicedo with the big move. Ecuador also has some rising talent coming up, great players. So I have Ecuador, and I believe they signed Felix Sanchez as their new coach. That was the coach of Qatar. And I know Qatar was a disaster in the World Cup, but I still think what that guy did with that awful team was a miracle just to make that competitive. So I
Yeah,
think
that
Ecuador
makes
is
sense.
on the right track. They were close to getting Gareca. That probably would have been better. But I think Felix Sanchez will be great for Ecuador. They
I
have
like that.
great talent coming up. But the US and Ecuador, to me, it's kind of like in 2 months, you can ask me, like, okay, US now, Ecuador. I have to figure out. And Ener Valencia has been freaking amazing in the Copa Libertadores. They're center forward for Internacional going to the semifinals. So I have US in 5 and Ecuador in 4th. But again, that can change very easily. Give me your 5 and your 4.
So my 5 is Uruguay. Okay.
Whoa. With
No,
Bielsa? With the local
listen.
Bielsa?
I'm not convinced. Okay, we really haven't seen Bielsa ball with this national team yet. All right, let's not jump the gun. All right, I know he's a G. Let's not be confused. And it's funny because I might get shit the other way. Like you might get shit because you put USA too low, but I have USA in 4 above Uruguay. And here's the reason why. If I'm thinking about Copa America, Bielsa's gonna have to work his magic. Uruguay does have talent, we know, and they just won like the under 20 World Cup just recently.
Mhm.
So they have some young talent or whatever. But Bielsa ball seems like it's good for a couple years, maybe, and maybe he's gonna hit the ground running, immediately with Uruguay. But I'm just not convinced. That's why I have USA in front of them. Maybe okay. I know all of our feelings with the US coach, so I'm just gonna
Yeah, I was
ignore
gonna
him.
say, what about Berhalter ball?
Yeah, I know. What's gonna happen, Filippo, is he's gonna say stuff before the game and at halftime. They're gonna get on the field and go, "All right, fuck that. Let's do our way." I hope at least. But anyways, I put USA in front of Uruguay because Uruguay's not there yet. Copa America after Copa America, at least they might be nasty. They might be a nasty team. Bielsa has time to work with them, but also Bielsa, as you know, and a lot of people know about him, is a fiery guy, and not too many people give him enough time to really work with what he has because his training's insane. His tactics are insane. His mentality, the dude is on 12 at all times, And some organizations don't like that. Um some clubs might think that's why he's been around so many different clubs. Even national teams might be like, that's too much for us. So we'll see how long he'll last in Uruguay. I just
I
think
feel like Uruguay as a national team is a little bit insane themselves. They're like
that's true.
warriors.
That's
Like
true.
you play
They
them,
are.
it's just like so. I feel like it kind of almost fits him. You face
Yes.
Uruguay, you know that the talent is there, but these players are just like warriors on the field.
Warriors.
Like they'll literally put their freaking face on your cleat and get kicked in the
Do you
face to
think
save a
though?
goal.
Do you think? But if but okay, that is important with Warriors. They might not have the best connections right now, which that can grow over time. But do you think if USA played Uruguay in a couple months, who do you think wins? First teams, first selections, everything
In the
stopped.
US,
Yeah, in the
in the US.
US.
I would say 50-50 maybe. I would actually in a few months,
Yeah,
I would actually give a slight advantage to Uruguay.
Uruguay, really? Okay.
I think if they play their best players, they have more quality. Right? Go through like they
Yeah.
have Darwin Nunes up top. I love Balogun. Darwin's a better
Baller.
player.
Right.
Fede Valverde is better than every
Valverde.
single American player right now.
He's a beast.
Bittencourt, is he injured still? I don't know, but
I think he
Bittencourt
is.
is probably. I mean, I know people remember him from Juventus. He wasn't that great, but he's a fantastic player. He's great for Tottenham. Their
Yep.
defense is better than the American defense too.
They're young guys
Jimenez,
coming off the bench
Araujo.
who just won a
Fabricio
World Cup.
Diaz is one of the U20
Diaz.
like midfielders. He's a great midfielder. I mean, you look at Uruguay; they have better players in the U.S. So, and I mean, would I take Bielsa? Do I think Bielsa would fit the American style of play? No, I don't think
No.
so. But I
Yeah.
also think he's a far more competent coach than Berhalter. So
Yeah.
I would
True.
have to give the advantage to Uruguay, even playing the U.S. I'd say it's like
That's fair.
60-40.
Yeah.
They have better players. That's the main thing for me, and they have young talent coming up
Yeah.
too. I mean, they beat the U.S. in the U20. We saw the
That's
difference
true.
there.
That's true.
That
That
we
is
saw
true.
that. So
I think maybe it's more recency bias and more like, look, if I'm thinking short term, I'm like, okay, maybe Uruguay or the US will sneak past Uruguay if they had to face each other in this tournament. But
no, we
that's just
can. I think
yeah,
we have a good shot. I
yeah,
think it's very reasonable for us to beat Uruguay. But I just
yeah.
like
It's not
there's
impossible.
the only two teams I think it's not very reasonable for the US to defeat are Brazil and Argentina. You need a major upset.
Yeah,
Besides that, I don't think the US beating Uruguay would be considered an upset
crazy.
in
Right.
the
Okay.
US.
Yeah.
So I agree with that, but I think Uruguay would have the slight advantage, which again, that kind of just tells you my number three. It's Uruguay. I
Yes.
think Uruguay is my number three. I talked about the players, talked about Bielsa. I think they're ahead of Ecuador in the US still until proven otherwise. I know they
Sure.
had a disappointing World Cup. It's time for them to move on from Suarez. Cavani can still be a backup. He's playing for Boca. He's a
Mm-hmm.
good backup to have, but I think they're
Baller.
fine. They have the
Yeah.
talent, they have the players, so they'll be fine. Arrascaeta that plays for Flamengo is fantastic. Pelestri is a good player too. So I think they're fine. So I have Uruguay number three. Who's your three?
Okay.
Ecuador?
My three is Ecuador. So Ecuador is another one. You've talked about them enough. They seem so solid as a whole collective group. For me, like just while I'm watching that, if I had to choose Argentina facing teams, it would be one of the last teams I want to face because they're like a Uruguay. They also are warriors. Like those guys
Mhm.
fight like crazy. I think they're coached pretty well. Like I said, they're so well organized. Yeah, they had some falling outs here and there, but as a collective, I would say Ecuador as of right now would be like a number three spot easy for me. And the next two, how do you want to do the next two? Do you want me just to read off two? I mean, if I say two, I know who one is. No,
Yeah,
right?
I just wanna end it saying
Yeah.
I just wanna end those there saying that US to me, US Ecuador are very close in talent. I would even
Yes.
say maybe the US has a bit more depth than Ecuador, but I think
Sure.
Ecuador's
Yeah.
best
Yeah.
players are better than our best players. And then Uruguay, I think they're better all around than Ecuador. But you are right in
Okay.
terms of stability. At least Ecuador seemed a bit more stable lately.
Yeah.
And I know Ecuador was out in the World Cup in the group stage, but I thought they played well.
Yes.
They
Yeah.
looked better against the Dutch than the Americans.
Yes.
So
Absolutely. Yeah.
that's something to say.
Good point.
Number one and two. Here's the thing with number one and two.
Yeah.
I'll just say it first because we're probably going to agree on it.
Yes.
There's like Argentina just won a World Cup in the Copa America, so there's not really much I can argue against that. I think Brazil has more depth than
Mm-hmm.
Argentina. I think
Mm-hmm.
Brazil has more options than Argentina. But again, Argentina had Messi and Di Maria in those two, which are probably
Yeah.
the two most impactful players out of these two nations combined outside of Neymar. Neymar
Mhm.
would probably be in the mix with them. But like right now, what am I going to argue? I would want to put Brazil first, but I have to put Brazil second and Argentina first. Argentina literally beat Brazil in the Copa America in Brazil.
Mhm.
They won it in 2021, 21,
Mhm. Yeah,
and they
21.
won the World Cup. So anything else I say is just a biased pick that I want to put Brazil. But I do want to leave that context. I do think
Sure,
on
yeah.
paper Brazil has more depth than
Yes.
Argentina.
So I'll say this. This is gonna be a little bit of surprise. If I'm going off of what happened, I would put Argentina in 1 for the moment. Just because what you just said, 2021, 2022, you would think
Yeah, we can't
2023.
even argue that much. Yeah.
But what I will say, like, if I'm being fair, like I'm doing all these other nations and I'm looking ahead for next summer, I know Brazil is not getting that. They're not getting Ancelotti yet, not quite.
Well,
But
I think he'll be in the Copa
will he
America. I
be
think that's the
24? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I think that's his first tournament. That's what I heard. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. That actually might help me a little bit on my number here. Okay, I'm just gonna say it. I have Argentina 2, Brazil 1, and this is why. You just said it. If you look at the playing field, Argentina has a ton of old guys. Already guys that like literally that World Cup was supposed to be I'm done with football, maybe go back to Argentina and play a couple years. And some players are like, let me stay a couple more years more playing because they want to. Fine. But Brazil, to me, the last since before the 2014 World Cup, and I think I even have a video of me like little Kevin saying this. Brazil, since I've been alive almost, uh, is always like a coach away from being the most dominant side. And the reason why I say that is I've watched so many Brazil games where I'm looking at the lineup and I'm literally thinking, this fucking side is going to destroy. I mean, they look amazing. Even friendly games, World Cup qualifiers, they're playing the most amazing football. And then they go to a tournament and it seems like coaches makes always the craziest subs, weird starting lineups. I see Brazil, winning a game, making defensive subs at like the 60th minute, like the game was over. It's like the game wasn't over. Brazil, you got plenty of time, and the other teams come back. Uh, to me, Brazil have already the quality. Don't have to argue it. Maybe some key pieces here and there, but when you go into a tournament, you need a coach that every U.S. team fan have been crying about for the last how many years. You need a guy that can make those decisions at the right time in a tournament where it's literally win or go home. And I don't think Brazil's really had that. Not that they had horrible coaches, but they haven't
We
had.
had horrible coaches.
Okay, well, I'm not gonna put
Horrible.
my opinion out there, but sure, you
I
can say
can.
it. You can say
Well,
it.
what you're saying, we did a short here at the channel talking about that, and I even
Yeah,
mentioned Argentina and Brazil. I think in terms of talent, the top talent of Brazil and Argentina, it's very close, very even, and then Brazil
sure.
has more of them because
Yes.
it's a bigger country too, so you get more people playing. But in terms of coaching, when you remove players and talk about coaching, you look at Argentine coaches throughout the world that are very successful. Diego
Yeah.
Simeone, Sampaoli had some level of success.
Don't
Bielsa
bring
had
them up.
some level of success.
Sure. You have
Tata
like
Martino,
Peckerman,
Tata
Tata,
Martino. What's his name? The guy from Chelsea right now, Pochettino, right?
Pochettino, all those. Yeah,
Yeah. So
they're
you've
out there.
had Argentine coaches prove themselves at the highest level. Can you name one Brazilian coach that has done it at the highest level?
And man,
You can't. You won't name it. You're gonna try to bring up
s-
Scolari. Some people
yeah,
bring up Scolari.
Scolari is I would say the one, right? Like
Well,
the
he failed in
biggest.
Europe when he went to
Uh,
Chelsea.
Chelsea. Yeah.
He worked with Brazil in the 2002 World Cup, and he did a good job
Yep.
with Portugal in 2006. But that was a very
Yep.
good Portuguese side. Cristiano
Yep.
Ronaldo was young, Luis Figo, Deco. That was a good team.
Yeah.
He failed with Chelsea. You can't name one Brazilian coach that has actually been successful in the best leagues in the world. It just doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So that's what I was saying is like we have like the talent the Argentine players have, actually, in my opinion, even more.
Hmm.
What is missing? Because Argentina in 2014 made it to a final.
Yeah.
Argentina won in 2022. It's like, oh, we're missing Messi. It's like,
No.
yeah,
No. No.
you can still win a World Cup
Yes.
without Messi. Sure, we
Exactly.
never had a Messi. The closest one we had to Messi the last 10 years was like
Was
Neymar,
Nay?
and that's
Yeah.
not Messi. But like we still have enough because
Yes.
we don't have Messi. But Neymar had Vinicius,
Sure.
Rodrigo,
Mhm.
Rafinha, other players that maybe Messi doesn't have.
A lot of
Messi,
people have to
like,
bring up Brazilian friends bring up a provider, like, the Messi name kind of deludes, like, you kind of get confused on what we're talking about, but at the end of the day, what Messi is doing is just providing through balls, great passes, setting up players for success, and then occasionally hitting some shots, right? Brazil has those guys in the final third, but not too many guys that have the greatest sense of awareness and all the and that's not like you still have like top players in that midfield area, but if you have a great coach that can guide that guy, those couple guys to look in these spaces, make areas. Yeah, that Croatia game in the World Cup, I mean, literally was just yelling at my TV. I'm like, Brazil should be winning like 2-3-0 right now. There was so many shots, so many chances in that game. And at one point, I turned off the TV. I was like, it's gonna be Brazil, Argentina. I can't wait. And when it kind of collapsed, I had to watch the game again. And every single Brazilian friend I have said, Kevin, don't even technically break this down. Look how we play right now. This is not Brazil. This is not how Brazil is famous for playing. Like these last few years, it doesn't feel like Brazil. And even my Brazilian friends are kind of uneasy about Ancelotti, but I think it's also a Brazilian mindset of like you want your coach deep down because you're passionate about your country to be a Brazilian. It's kind of fucking badass. I don't want any. I want a
yeah,
Brazilian. But now I don't think it matters anymore. I think one day in the future, imagine like a Pep Guardiola and Team USA, Ancelotti in Brazil. I don't think it
the thing
necessarily.
the thing
Yeah,
is, Chichi, people give him way too much credit. He's a horrible coach. Chichi's a horrible coach, and he's always been a horrible coach.
yeah,
But people think he's something good because he speaks pretty. He's like a good
right.
public speaker.
Yes, he
Like
is. Yeah,
never in history of Brazil we had the same coach stay for 2 World Cups and fall twice in the quarterfinals with an actual team. That
yeah,
both World Cups he was a title contender for both World Cups.
yeah.
In
I mean,
2018, Brazil had a very good team. 2022, I would argue they had the second best team in the
oh
World Cup,
yeah,
only
oh
behind France,
oh yeah.
and he lost twice in the quarterfinals. He is a horrible coach. That's two
So is the
chances.
federation your federation just dropped its levels, or what?
I
We just
think
kiss his ass too much?
No, I just think that the federation was like trying to persist with Brazilian coach. Like, no, let's make it work. Maybe this guy
Yeah,
will
let's make
do
it
it.
work. Yeah,
Let's try. And I think the federation finally realized like we don't have any. So that's
right.
why they're like, I don't care. We're gonna put an interim coach for 2 years, but we're bringing Ancelotti because that's what we need.
Yeah,
And I'm fine with that. I'm fine
yeah.
with that. That's what we need. But everyone, let us know in the comment section down below your top 10 nations in the Americas. It's kind of weird that the Brazilian put Argentina in first. I agree with
I know.
everything.
Yeah,
By the way, I agree with everything you said. It's just that right now, like I have
sure.
nothing to back my argument with the results.
Yeah.
But I understand what you're saying with Ancelotti coming in and everything else. Brazil has some young talent coming up too. But anyhow, let me know your ranking. You guys let us know your top 10 nations in the Americas. Go follow Cavincio too. I'm putting all his link, handle, everything in the
Thank you.
description. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. This was part 2 of the 2-episode miniseries. So go watch part 1 if you haven't already. All right. Bye bye.